Bit of a follow-up on what I was saying about Google the other day, and that was all kind of spiritual, really, because Google is now trying to get into the realms of giving you a tarot reading, all that kind of thing. And like I said in that video, I can't imagine anything more ridiculous, quite honestly. But hey, there you go, Google. I've done some experiments over the last few days, actually, because I'd just like to know if it's possible, not to be spied on by Google in absolutely everything you do. And quite honestly, it's harder than I really thought. I didn't realize kind of how bad it had got. I tried, I've got a Linux computer or Linux, or whatever you want to call it. And it's not just running Ubuntu, it's running a very, very obscure source code that I've kind of tweaked myself to, make it as private as possible. And a lot of people talk about DuckDuckGo as a good alternative to Google, and actually it is in a lot of ways. You don't get bombarded with advertising the same way, but it's less private than it seems on the face of it, if you ask me. Now, there is, what's it called, a Firefox extension, a Mozilla extension for Firefox of DuckDuckGo. So I got Firefox on there and I enabled added and enabled the DuckDuckGo extension. And then I tried a little experiment just to see how this was going, and whether it was working or not. And my experiment really is just to open Google in a supposedly private browser and open YouTube. Actually, sorry, that's what I meant to say. So I opened YouTube and it was showing me signed out, and that's all kind of good. And I watched YouTube for a bit, and then I went back to the homepage of YouTube, and it wasn't actually recommending anything that I've watched in quite a long time, really. So that was looking positive. And then the next day I tried it again, and as soon as I opened YouTube, it said, "Why not sign in?" And it offered me all. I've got 3 or 4 different YouTube channels going, and it offered me all 4 of those. And which one of these do you want? So it knew who was on there. So quite honestly, that and Surfshark VPN, which frankly is a joke, were not doing the business. So there we go. So I took Firefox off there and I looked around and I decided to try one called Ghostery. And that one so far is excellent. YouTube has no idea who's watching it, and it hasn't tried to get me to sign in or anything like that. And there's something like 27 trackers that it picked up and 5 ads that it blocked before I'd even watched a video. So I thought that was kind of good. But honestly, that's really going to extremes. I think a lot of people just wouldn't want to go that far. Linux is actually very easy to install, but it's a little bit tricky at the beginning. It kind of depends what your computer is as to how you get into the boot menu and make it boot from a USB drive in my case. So it's not that straightforward, but I urge you to give it a go if you care about that, because you're certainly not going to get any privacy, using iOS or any of the Windows operating systems or Android either, because who owns Android? Google most certainly does. So anyway, right, so I'm that important, right? And this is a very true thing that people say when you talk about privacy. You're that important, are you? That the government wants to kind of find out what you're doing. And no, of course I'm not. But the other side of it, which might seem on the face of it less of a problem, but is actually a massive problem, it is the attempts to sell you things, and not just try and sell you things, but to get into your head so you kind of want to buy stuff that you really don't need. This, of course, is nothing new. If you think back over the years, maybe like me, you remember a time before the internet, or before, it was like it is now. Like in the 1990s, you could only really chat on MSN. I think that was about all there was. And then some of the websites came out with their own internal chat rooms, and it all started happening. But, you'd kind of you'd send someone a picture, and there were probably only 12 pictures of you in existence from your whole life because, we didn't have smartphones and we weren't taking pictures of everything. Oh, there go the neighbours. Wow. So we didn't have smartphones, so you get one of these pictures to send to somebody, and after about an hour, about 10% of it would have uploaded, and then you'd have to say, sorry, I'll send the rest tomorrow. My mother needs to use the phone in the house, and that would just be the end of it. I have to take you like a week to upload a picture. So things weren't really moving all that fast and tracking us that much, were they? But think about soaps, and it's not just soaps, it's TV in general. It really is. But if you think about the soaps that you've watched over the years, um, I, I'll give you an example, and I actually fell for this one. Not in a huge way, but I did fall for it. These plastic kettles came out, and I didn't really trust the things, because like plastic is going to melt, isn't it? And even if it doesn't melt, when it gets boiling water in it, some of the plastic is going to leach out into the water. Absolutely, for sure. And I didn't like the idea of this. And I was just watching, I think it was EastEnders, actually. I stopped watching EastEnders. It's a British soap. I stopped watching it because it's incredibly depressing. But someone in that had a plastic kettle, and for some reason that made me think they're probably safe. So I went out and got a plastic kettle because my kettle was actually dying. So I did need a kettle. But rather than save up and get a good one made out of metal, I went and got one of these plastic ones, and I used it for years. And then people started having these green kettles, and maybe this was a British thing because the green colour that was on, well, it was kettles, cookers, microwaves, toasters, anything you can name, really. There was a green plastic version of it. And this green was a colour that's very close to a colour known as British Racing Green. So maybe, like I say, this is just a British thing. But there was nothing actually wrong with my original plastic kettle, and yet I went out and got one of these. And, I like to think I'm reasonably aware of these things, but they got me time and time again. And so before there was ever any kind of Google or anything like that, companies were using the soaps and using other things on TV to get inside your head and make you think, oh, I could do with one of everyone else has got one of those. That's probably a good idea. It's one of those things. If everybody jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff as well? That's the question. I think a lot of us probably would these days, but please don't, whatever's happening. It's not that bad. So, is there any escape from Google? I really severely doubt it. To be honest, for the great majority of people. And even when I've been using my super private setup, as I like to think of it, it's still going straight into my Wi-Fi router. So it's all still going straight to, well, apparently through a VPN, but I don't trust those. That's another video. That really is. But, stuff is going on and stuff is happening. And I wouldn't like to say there's no escape from it at all, but I think the only real escape is to stop using the internet, and that just is not going to make things good. So I'm looking around because I can see a car parked behind me, and I'm wondering what the heck's going on. Right, anyway, on that note, thank you very much. Thanks for all your comments on my last video about the Wales 20 miles an hour thing. Someone did actually say that people who want to drive faster than 20 miles an hour in Wales want to hurt children and are no better than paedophiles. I thought that was an interesting one, and I deleted it, quite honestly, because why the hell should I have that sitting there? Anyway, on that note, take care of yourselves, friends, and see you very soon with another one. Bye.